Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. As we gear up for the festive season, with our twinkling lights and perfectly decorated trees, have you ever wondered what Christmas was actually like centuries ago? Forget everything you think you know from Victorian Christmas cards. Today, we're jumping in our time machine and heading back 500 years to the Tudor era around the 1520s to uncover the wild, wonderful, and sometimes weird world of a historical Christmas. First off, let's get one thing straight. Christmas wasn't just one day. It was a massive 12-day festival that kicked off on Christmas Day and didn't stop until 12th night on January 5th. This was the biggest holiday of the year, a much-needed break after a long and laborious farming season. For most ordinary people, this was the only real holiday they got, so they made it count. Work, except for essential tasks like tending to animals, completely stopped. Think of it as a nationwide shutdown, but with a lot more feasting and a lot less scrolling on your phone. So, what about the decorations? Well, you wouldn't find a plastic tree or strings of electric lights. Instead, people decorated their homes and churches with natural greenery. Holly, ivy, mistletoe, and rosemary were everywhere. These weren't just for looks. They were deeply symbolic. Holly, with its prickly leaves and red berries, represented Christ's crown of thorns and his sacrifice. Ivy was a symbol of eternity and resurrection. This tradition of decking the halls brought the outdoors in, filling homes with the sights and smells of the winter forest. It was a way of celebrating life in the midst of the darkest, coldest time of the year. Now, let's talk about the food, because what's a celebration without a feast? Forget your standard turkey dinner. While turkey was introduced to England from the Americas around this time, it was a rare and incredibly expensive luxury reserved for the super wealthy, like King Henry VIII himself. For the rich, the centerpiece of the Christmas feast was often a boar's head, decorated with herbs and served with an apple in its mouth. Other extravagant dishes included swan, peacock, and elaborate pies. But what about the common folk? They feasted too, just on a more modest scale. A goose or a capon would be a treat. They'd enjoy a special kind of bread and cheese, and most importantly, they had access to better food than usual. Landlords were often expected to provide their tenants with a feast, a tradition that strengthened community bonds. And at the heart of it all was a dish you might recognize: mince pies. Except back then, they were known as shred pies or mutton pies, and they contained actual minced meat like mutton, along with fruits and spices. They were often shaped like a manger to represent the baby Jesus' crib. And what did they drink? Ale. Copious amounts of ale. A special, stronger Christmas ale was brewed just for the occasion. They also drank wassail, a warm, spiced punch made from mulled ale or cider, served in a giant communal bowl. The act of wassailing was a huge part of the festivities. Groups would go from house to house, singing and offering a drink from the wassail bowl in exchange for a gift, all while wishing good health and a good harvest for the coming year. It was a boisterous, joyful tradition that was all about community and sharing goodwill. Now here's where things get really interesting and a bit chaotic. A central figure of the Tudor Christmas celebration was the Lord of Misrule. This was a person, usually a commoner or a junior member of a household, appointed to be in charge of all the Christmas festivities. Their job was to turn the normal social order completely upside down. For 12 days, the Lord of Misrule's word was law. They would command nobles to perform silly tasks, organize games, plays, and general mayhem. It was a time of sanctioned chaos, where servants could mock their masters and the usual stiff rules of society were temporarily thrown out the window. This was a form of social release, a way to let off steam in a very hierarchical world. Imagine your boss having to serve you dinner for a day. That was the kind of energy we're talking about. Gift-giving was also a part of the celebration, but it was very different from our modern-day frenzy. Gifts weren't exchanged on Christmas Day. Instead, the big gift-giving day was New Year's Day. This was a serious and strategic affair, especially for the nobility. It was a way to show loyalty, gain favor, and climb the social ladder. Courtiers would present carefully chosen gifts to the monarch, hoping to get noticed. For ordinary people, gifts were much simpler and more practical. Perhaps a pair of gloves, some food, or something handmade. The focus was less on commercialism and more on a direct exchange between individuals. Music and entertainment were at the heart of the 12 days. Carols were sung, but they weren't the solemn hymns we often sing in church today. Many were rowdy, danceable tunes sung in pubs and homes. Professional troupes of players and musicians would travel the country, performing plays and masks, which were elaborate performances involving music, dancing, and spectacular costumes, especially popular at the royal court. For everyone else, there were games like blind man's buff, forfeits, and card games. It was a time of non-stop entertainment. But what about Christmas Day itself? It was, first and foremost, a religious day. Everyone was expected to attend 3 masses, one at midnight, one at dawn, and one in the morning. This was the spiritual core of the holiday. After the solemnity of the church services, however, the feasting and merrymaking would begin in earnest, lasting for the next 11 days. It was a perfect blend of sacred devotion and worldly celebration. As the 12 days drew to a close, the festivities culminated in the 12th night celebration on January 5th. This was the final big party. A special 12th cake was baked with a dried bean and a pea hidden inside. The man who found the bean in his slice was crowned king for the night, and the woman who found the pea was crowned queen. They would preside over the evening's entertainment, marking one last hurrah before everything went back to normal. The following day, known as Plough Monday, was when the men would return to the fields, and the festive season was officially over. All the greenery was taken down, and life resumed its usual rhythm. So, as you can see, Christmas 500 years ago was a far cry from our modern holiday. It was longer, louder, and arguably a lot more chaotic. It was a deeply communal festival, rooted in the agricultural calendar and a strict social hierarchy. Yet it provided a unique opportunity to turn that hierarchy on its head. It blended solemn religious observance with wild, uninhibited merrymaking. It was less about material presence and more about the shared experiences of feasting, singing, and playing games together. So this year, when you're sipping your eggnog, maybe raise a glass to the Lord of Misrule and the wild, wonderful, and truly unforgettable Christmases of the past. Thanks so much for hanging out and traveling back in time with me today. If you enjoyed this journey into history, please give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you do not miss our next adventure. Let me know in the comments what historical topic you'd like to explore next. Until then, stay curious and have a wonderful holiday season.